Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Avodah Zarah Daf Lamed-Vav. We begin on the bottom of Lamed Hamid Beis on the very last line. V'Hashem Shalahem. So what about their oils? Oil produced by a guy. In the Mishnah we list it as one of those items which are asur. One may not consume shemen of a guy, but it is not asur to have benefit from it. There's no isur hano. Now, actually, in the Mishnah we have a line which says Rebbe ubeis dinoi. So in the later generations, Rebbe and his bezdin actually hitiru hashem, they rescinded, they canceled the isur on shemen. So shemen is no longer asur. And Rashi in the Mishnah actually says we don't have that line in the Mishnah, because the person who was matir the shemen, we're going to see in the Gemara, his name was Rabbi Danasi, and he was not the Rabbi Danasi, the Tana, rather he was a Rabbi Danasi later on in the Gemara, one of the Amoraim. So it could not have been included in the Mishnah, which was recorded years before. In any case, as we're going to see today, in fact, it was rescinded, it was permitted later on through Rabbi Danasi and his bezdin. But what was the historical, step by step that occurred from the time they enacted the Gezerah? Why did they enact it? What was the reason for it? And how that whole story developed into the ultimate heter. Okay, so we have a machlekes. V'Hashem Shalahem, shemen. What's the reason for the isur of shemen? And in fact, who was the one who established the initial isur? Shemen, Rav Omar Daniel. Daniel, he was the one who established the isur. Daniel Gazer Olav. And as we're going to see later in the Gemara, it's because of chasnus, very similar to the isur of pas akum, bishul akum. There's a concern that these types of staple items, staple foods, if one would share them with a guy, or share the guy's items in this manner, it would engender closeness, foster personal connection, and perhaps even lead to chas v'shalom intermarriage. So according to Rav, it was established way back when, in the old days, by Daniel Gazer Olav. Ushmuel Amar, he says, no, it was established much later on, at times of Shammai v'Hillel, Tamidim of Hillel v'Shammai, and it was based on a very, very simple practical issue. Isra of kashrus, because the oil that was contained in non-kosher containers in the hands of the guy perhaps absorbed some residue coming from the walls of those containers which had contained non-kosher food. So it's a simple kashrus issue, the fuss and the extraction, the dripping, so to speak, of the shalkelim tmeim of the containers which are tamei oisras, and that affects the oil, the content. Ask the Gemara, hold it. Why are we concerned about tumah here? Atu kuli alma oichle taharas ninu? Is that so that everybody, all Yidden, are meticulous about eating their food strictly b'tahara? A kohen has got to be careful not to become tamei, etc. But a regular person, so you're concerned about it becoming tamei? Why would that be sufficient reason to establish this gzera, this ban, on all gaisha oils? Ella, rather, when we said tmeim sometimes refers to non-kosher. We're concerned about the residue of those non-kosher containers affecting the getting mixed into the oil and affecting it. So Rav holds that Daniel, in the old days, established the isur, whereas according to Shmuel, it was a more current isur due to non-kosher, possible non-kosher component mixed in. Amal Shmuel Rav. So Shmuel turns to Rav. Bishleimu l'didi. It all works out according to my opinion, that I say, Damina, Zlifasan shal kelim, asur neisrasan, it's the non-kosher residue that taints the oil. So that would explain why they rescinded this gzeira, this isur, in later generations. So, as Taisus explains, even Shmuel agrees that there's an element of chasnus concern, that this can lead to closeness and social interaction, which can lead to, further, it can lead to intermarriage. But he holds that it's sort of a combined entity. Both factors together formed the basis. Each one on its own wouldn't suffice. It was both together that generated this serious concern about their oils. The marriage aspect and the simple kashrus aspect. And that would explain, says Shmuel, that later on they rescinded it. Because since they discounted the kashrus aspect, because we're speaking about spoiled flavor coming from the walls, that's called noisen tam. It imparts a flavor, but it's lefgam. It's spoiled. It's not enhancing the food. So they discounted that concern. So they canceled the whole thing. So Bishlei Milididi works well according to me. Damina, I say Slifasan shall kill my asur neisros. Not the concern is the kashrus aspect. Hainu. That would explain the chiyasur of Yitzchak. Bar Shmuel Bar Marta. When he came, Va'amar, he said, Rabbi Isai, I'll tell you a story. Dorish, Rabbi Simloi. Rabbi Simloi got up and declared in the town of B'Netzivin, you should know that the Isra of Shemen was cancelled. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi Ubeis Dina Nimnu Alav V'Hitiru. Rabbi Hanasi and his court took a vote and concluded to do away with the whole Isra. Why? Because he held, no, you said Tam Lefgam is Mutter. Although there may be some possible non-kosher residue, but it was old, spoiled. It would just be to the detriment, so to speak, of its content, of the oil content, if that residue gets mixed in. So it's not adding, it's not enhancing, and therefore it's mutter. So that explains why they rescinded the Isra. Ela didach, but according to you, Rav, who says the Amris, Daniel Gazer Alav. Well, if Daniel did it because of marriage concerns, so then how could we go ahead and rescind that? Daniel Gazar, if Daniel established the Isser, how is Rabbi Danasi going to go do away with it? V'asa Rabbi Danasi Mavatale, how could Rabbi Danasi come and cancel it? You need to be part of a bezdin, of a greater stature, of a higher level than that initial bezdin that established the takana in order to overturn that ruling. We have a Mishnah in bezdin. A later court cannot overturn a ruling issued by a previous court unless he is considered greater than the previous court in terms of wisdom, in terms of the number of students involved in the second court, which gives them the added, the ability to analyze better, to better, deal with the issue. Unless the second court is greater than the first court, with wisdom, with minyan, with the numbers. So according to me, the bezdin of Rabbi Danasi apparently was, of that stature vis-a-vis those who established the takana. But in your case, Daniel was much greater than anybody in the later generations. So how could Rabbi Simloi tell us that it was cancelled? Amalei, so Rab responded sort of dismissively. He said, Simloi? You're quoting Simloi from Lud? He came from the town of Lud. Simloi Luda? Ka'anos? You're relating to Simloi from Lud? There's no credibility there. Shani Luda? Those people from Lud. They're known. The Mezazlu, they're known to do away and to negate, disregard. Rashi says, Mezazli, but me did the Rabbanon. They don't take the words of the Rabbanon seriously. I don't believe that it was in fact rescinded. Shmuel said, should I send them your words? Should I tell them what you said about him? So Rab was sort of felt uncomfortable because he expressed himself this way, dismissing Rabbi Simloi. But in any case, he held that it could not have been rescinded, since it was established by Daniel. In fact, Amar Rav, imheim lo darshu, just because Rabbi Danasi and his bezdin. So basically, a fact was a fact. It was rescinded, but he felt that it wasn't substantiated. It wasn't correct that they rescinded it. In fact, he says, "Im hem le'dorshu, anan le'dashina," just because they, meaning Rabbi Nasi's team, didn't discover this. In the words of the pasuk, that in fact it was established by Daniel, and they held it was only, based on kashrus concerns, and that's why they canceled it, because of the reason we mentioned before. They didn't realize that in fact it was established for a different reason altogether, because of a serious interaction, chasnus concern, which doesn't justify any cancellation in later times. Just because they didn't expound on the psukim, does that mean we shouldn't either? Look, there's a clear pasuk. The pasuk says, "Vayosam Daniel al liboy." So he committed to this practice. Asher lo yizgoyel b'pas bag hamelech. He wouldn't partake in the king's food. Ubiyayin mishtoyoy, nor in his wine and his drinks. Now, mishtoyoy can be learned plural. Mishtav, Mishtav. It can be learned plural, like Mishtav, the drinks. Which two liquids did he keep away from? Bishtei Mishtoy. The pasuk is referring to two liquids. Echad Mishtei Yain, Echad Mishtei Shemen. One is partaking in the king's wine, and one is in his oil. Clearly, he established a ban on these things. So, in fact, Rav understood this pasuk to mean that it wasn't a personal, private commitment just for himself. Daniel, right? He placed it on his heart, so to speak, meaning he personally committed to it, and he also established it for everybody. He ruled it as a practice for everybody. Shmuel disagreed. Shmuel held Aliboy some. True, it's clear that Daniel himself practiced this Isser, but he did not impose it on the rest of the nation. Rather, it only came later on, in the times of Hillel v'Shammai, and the reason was, like we said, was based on chasnus, in combination with the reason of the kashrus concerns, and since later on it was discovered that the kashrus concern was not an issue, so the whole thing was rescinded. Asks the Gemara of Shemen. So this ban on the oil, Daniel Gazar, was established by Daniel Bali. That was his name. Mishmei, he quotes Rav himself. Mishmei the Rav. No, Pitan v'Shamnan. The Isser imposed on their breads, on their oils, Yena on their wines, and they say in their daughters, Kulam Mishmoina Asr Doverhain. They were enacted as part of the 18 gzeros, 18 items, which were voted upon and established by the Talmidim of Hillel v'Shammai, as discussed in the first parak of Mesachas Shabbos. They went up to this apartment, this aliyah, upstairs apartment of Hananya over there, and they, established 18 gzeros. These were amongst them. Apparently, it was a much later gzera, rather than from the time of Daniel. Says the Gemara of Chitema, perhaps will say, both are true. Also, Daniel Gazar, although Daniel did attempt to establish this as an Isser, but the Gzera was not accepted. It did not. It didn't fly. Also, Hillel v'Shammai v'Gazar, perhaps later on, in the times of Hillel v'Shammai, it was v'Gazar v'Kibel. They established it, and it did take root. If that's the case, Imkain, my Asadu said the Rav. So what's Rav's testimony that Shemen came from the time of Daniel? If it wasn't established, it didn't fly then that's not a Gzera. It means it was established only later, not earlier. Why was Rav referring to Daniel if it wasn't really successful at that time? Says the Mu'ella, rather, the correct sequence of events were as follows. Daniel Gazer Olav Be'er. Although Daniel did make a Gzera. He did ban the oil. But it was only Be'er, in town, where you live, for concern about personal interaction and intermarriage. Came the later generations, Hillel v'Shammai Talmidim, they came and they broadened the scope of the Isser. Not only in town, where there's that, close-knit feeling, even on the road. In a non-residential setting, you still cannot share shemen of a goy, despite, the lack of intimate setting, but it can lead to more so. So although it was initiated by Daniel, but it was firmly established in greater scope by Talmidei Hillel v'Shammai. But ultimately, as we learned, it was rescinded by Rabbi Danasi and his Bezdin. Here comes the question. But how could he? Even if we'll say that it was really only established by Talmidei Hillel v'Shammai, and there's a kasha on both, on Rav and Shmuel, how could Rabbi Danasi's Bezdin retract it? Rabbi Danasi, hechi matzi lemishrut hakanta. How could he go and undo a takana? But the Talmidei Shammai v'Hillel v'Atznam, we have that Mishnah, ein Bezdin yochel levatel divrei Bezdin chaveroi. One court cannot override the words of a different court. Elam ken gadol heimenu b'chachma b'nei, unless he's deemed greater and of higher status. Furthermore, specifically, a gzera of Talmidei Hillel v'Shammai, that couldn't be touched regardless. Void. Furthermore, Amar Rabba, by Rachan, Amar B'Yechon, B'Koyel Yochel Levatel, regarding any type of ruling, a Bezdin can be mevatel the earlier divrei, the words of the earlier Bezdin Chaveroi, if in fact he's deemed greater in stature, etc. But there are exceptions. Chutz mishmoin asadavar, except for these 18 takanos referred to earlier, established by Talmidei Hillel v'Shammai. Amongst them we have the oil. Why? Why are these considered critical? Shafilu yavai el yovei's dina. Listen to this. Even if El Yonavina shows up with his Bezdin, the greatest of the great. Ein shemile. We don't accept his words. Why? Says Taisus, because they were meisei nefesh. They stuck a sword down. They said, "This is serious business. We're going to get to the bottom of these issues," and they didn't let the Talmidim of, since they were going to vote based on numbers, they actually, the Rishalmi says, they threatened by sword. Any Talmidim further Talmidim of Beis Hillel, to even attempt to come up, they were going to, because they didn't want to be outnumbered by the Talmidim of Beis Hillel, who were typically more lenient. Throughout Shas you find Hillel is usually Mekel and Beis Shammai is usually Machmir. So they wanted to keep it as such so that they can conclude, the way they did. So basically, it was they took it really seriously. They sacrificed over Meisei Nefesh to establish those very critical gzeros to ensure protection of the Mesorah and integrity of the various halachas. It was a very serious experience, and they were Meisei Nefesh for it. So that stays. You can't tinker with that. You can't touch it. It's untouchable. So how could they? How could we just cancel this type of Isra? Answers the Gemara. You know what? This is different. Oil is different because it was unsuccessful. It was deemed unsuccessful. Amar Misharshi Matam. Why can't you interfere with those takanis? Hoylu Pashat Isuram B'Rov Yisrael. Since those gzeros, those isurim were accepted when they were disseminated by the chachamim. It was accepted by most of the community. So yeah, if they abide by it, it becomes an established takana, and you can't. But the takana of oil, for some reason, just didn't take off. It was not accepted. It wasn't practiced. Lo pashat isurei b'Rav Yisrael. The isur did not spread, so to speak. Did not disseminate. It didn't take root. It was not absorbed. It wasn't practiced by most of the nation. So if most are abiding, then it's considered an active takana. But if you don't have most cooperating, then it just doesn't work. And then you could just rescind it. The Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, he says, look, they analyzed, they did some research. Yashvu Rabbi Seinu, our Rabbi Seinu, who are those? Says Rashi, yeah, Rabbi Danasi. So it wasn't just in a vacuum. They went and they researched. They, did due diligence to this, to in fact verify whether it was established, whether it was practiced, whether it was being abided with. Yoshev Rabbi Seinu Batku al Shemen, regarding the Shemen ban, Shalei Pashat Yisur Rabbi Yisrael was not something that most people were abiding by, in which case they said, okay, it's time to undo it, V'samcho Rabbi Seinu, and they relied on the words of Al Dibur Shimon Gamliel, the rulers of Tzaddik, Sho'ayim, they would tell us, and goes from Gzera Latzibur. They would not establish a Gzera and Isser on the community, Elim Kin, unless they can sort of predict in their judgment that it's going to be applied, it's going to be practiced by most of the tzibur. Elim Kin Rik Tzibur, Yichayl Lamed Ba, unless it's something which most can abide by. It has to be practical. So in this case, although they attempted to do so, they established the Isser, but once they saw later on that it just didn't take root, so then they have the ability to just cancel it. The Amar of Abba, Bar Abba, Mikra, where is this concept sourced in a pasuk? And unless most are abiding by it, it doesn't really take effect. So they committed themselves to bring, I think, the Maser to the Beis Hamikdash. So you established yourself with a curse with Ma'ara. You committed yourself to a curse if you don't keep it. And you're not listening. You're stealing from me the entire nation. So these words Hagoy Kulai come to teach us if the entire nation or most of it is involved and practicing it, fine, then it takes effect. Eloi, but otherwise, loy, it doesn't. So in terms of the, chronological order of events regarding the Isser and eventual Heter of Shemen, so according to Rav, initially it was established by Daniel in a limited scope, only in town, and it was based on the concern of Chasnus. Talmidei Hillel v'Shamai added another dimension, even on the road. But when they saw it wasn't really taking root, they later, Bezdin of Rabbi Danasi just came along and cancelled it. So today it's no longer us. According to Shmuel, it took on a bit of a different route. It was initiated by Talmidei Hillel v'Shamai, based on that joint combined concern of Chasnus and the Tam coming from the Kli, and Rabbi Danasi, upon realizing that it was not being practiced, Anastasis says, look, he didn't really fully agree with the Tam is really only a pgam. It's not enhancing. It's, if anything, it's spoiling the oil. So basically, putting it all together, Chasnus, he says, wasn't either. He didn't go with that either because I guess it's just oil. It's not considered something so substantial like bread or like their cooked food. In which case, he decided to undo it, considering that it was not really accepted in a widespread manner. Okay, good. Let's go back and review that line that we had before. Amar Bali. So Bali declared like this. Amar Bali, Amar Avimi Nuto. Avimi Nuto was his name. He quotes Rav, Mishmei de Rav. That in fact, the Isra on their breads, on their oils, Pitan, Shamnon, Yenon, Nisain, Kulan, all these were Mishmoina Asor Davarhain, established as one of those 18 Gzeres established by the students of Hillel v'Shamai. So breads we understand, oils, yeah, wine. What is Bnei Sein? Bnei Sein, the daughters. What does that mean? Mahim. Amar of Nachmar Yitzchak Gazral Bnei Sein Nidois Marisusan Chachamim. In order to keep us away from their daughters, they applied a status of a nida to even the little young daughters of the Goyim, even before they can experience the nida experience, before they're even technically able to experience dam. They termed them Tmeyos Nida. Mary Susan from their cradle. Ugniva Mishmed Rabama. Gniva had a different shot, the name of Rav. He says like this: Kulon Mishum Avodas Chacham Gazr Behen. In reality, everything, the oils, the breads, everything was based on a concern that it could lead to getting involved in their lifestyle and their belief system connecting to the Avodah Zarah. How's that? The Chiyasa Rav Acha bar Ada Amar Bitzchak, he explained. It was sort of a chain concern, a chain reaction. Gazral Pitan Mishum Shamna. The Isser was initially established on their breads for concern that if you have their bread, you're going to have it with their oil. Apparently bread and oil came together, like peanut butter and bread and peanut butter. And then that will lead to the next. Oh, 1 second. Let's take a short stop. What do you mean? Bread for concern of oil, which means that oil is a greater concern than bread. My ulmei the shemen. What's the advantage? What's the greater concern by oil over bread? Mipas. That you're saying bread is only on account of oil. Ella, rather, the correct approach is like this. It was a continuous sort of chain concern. Al pitan v'shamna mishum yena. Yeah, bread and oil go together. They were banned lest it lead you to partaking in their wines, because eating with them might lead to drinking with them. What's wrong with drinking with them? Now we're not speaking about actual yain nesach that was used for Avodah Zarah. We're speaking about stam yainam, like we had yesterday in the Mishnah, things which are just belonging to goyim. That was asr al yainan mishum b'nai sein, because if you partake in their wines and engage in social drinking, etc., it might lead to a family connection. You might go and intermarry. But that's not the end of the story. B'nai sein was a concern that it might lead you to connect to their lifestyle, their belief system, and their Avodah Zarah. So one on account of the next, on account of the next, on account of the next, ultimately Avodah Zarah. And then there's another item as well, which was not yet mentioned. Val davar achar, they established an isser on something else, which will be explained later. Mishum davar achar, because it can lead to even something else, which is even more. Okay, we'll see later. But first, let's go back to the first list. Bread and oil to the wine to the daughters. Hold it, daughters? Marrying a goyte, that's asr min ha-Torah. You don't need a special takana, a special gzeira for that. But he's saying the Torah banned. The Torah disallows marrying a goyte. Don't marry into the goy. Well, the Raisa, that pasuk is only zayin umais. It was an anticipation of entering Eretz Yisrael, warning us to keep away from those 7 primary nations in Eretz Canaan, who were really infatuated with their idols. Right? So perhaps that's different. But perhaps there's no issue regarding other Goyish nations. That's why they had to come along and ban intermarriage with other Goyim as well. As the Gemara. But according to Shimon Yochai, the ban of the pasuk applies to all nations equally. All those that can lead you astray and lead you to Avodah Zarah. Or Rab Shimon Yochai, according to him, the Amar who said, Ki Yasres ben Chmei he will lead your son astray. L'Rav is Kol HaMasiros. That covers all nations who can do the same. No, so all nations are awesome. So then it's no longer necessary to establish a gzeira if it's already asur min ha-Torah. Ela d'oraisa, rather min ha-Torah, we have to make a distinction. Min ha-Torah ishus derech chasnus. Torah says, like says, chatanam, don't marry, in a formal family setting. V'asu inu b'gazra afilu derech znus. Came the later chachamim and established an isra, even if it's an informal physical interaction, even without marriage. Well, znus nami, even that aspect of interaction was already established prehistorically in the time of Bezdin of Shem, Bezdin Shel Shem, the son of Noach, right? Gazru, that was already established then. The Chsiv, that was a famous story with Yehuda and Tamar, and they thought she deviated, and she was of good stock. She was a daughter of Shem, who had to abide by their more elevated, lifestyle. They had as you can say, like a Yiddish lifestyle. The people, the Shvatim and the Shem and his descendants, right? So they had committed to a certain lifestyle, and then interacting out of the fold would be considered like interacting with a guy, and that's why they condemned her to death, to Sreifa, right? Right? Gazra d'chsiv vayomer Yehuda hoitziyo v'tisara, burn her for doing that. Apparently his nus with a guy was already banned in prehistoric times. Like the Gemara, oh, you're right. Minat Torah ibkichavim. It's limited to a guy. Haba Bas Yisrael interacts with a Bas Yisrael, similar to the story of Tamar. The Mashal Basrain, the concern is because she'll be drawn after the husband of Avodah Zarah, Aval Yisrael. But if it's in the reverse, a Yid who interacts with a Gaisha woman, Haba Alavedas A'ivedas Kachavim, Yisrael Haba Alavedas Kachavim, Loi, that would not include it. Vasu Inu Gazra, and they came along later on and made that Asr as well. Afil Yisrael Haba Alavedas Kachavim. Ask the Gemara, well, that's also Asr from way back. From the famous story of Zimri, right? Pinchas, Yisrael Abba, Alavedas Kachavim. Well, that's Asr from Malach Meshmir Sinai. All the way back from Sinai, Damamar, as we learned. Haboy la Ramas, one interacts physically with a Gaisha woman. Kanoin Poigim, by these zealots, strike him down. Says the Gemara, yeah, that's because it was in public. Dairaisa, so Minat Torah, Befarhesti. It's only considered Asr if it's in public, Kamasa Shahaya, like the story that we spoke about. Va'asu inu, come the later generations, and they made a Gzera, Gazra Afil even in private. And that's what they added. Well, that's also Asr from way back. Bitsina, interacting with a Gaisha woman, even in private, Nami, that too, was already established by the Chashmonaim. When they were being tormented by the Greeks, and many were drawn after the Greeks and interacted with them. So they sought to establish very clear boundaries, and they made a very strong, very strict Gzera. Beistina shel Chashmonai Gazru, they made a Gzera. The Chiyasar of Dimi Omar, he said, Bezin shel Chashmonai Gazru, they declared that Yisrael Haba, Halavedas Kachavim, should a Yid interact physically with a guy, Chayiv Mishum Nashga, they strike him down, they give him Malchus, as though he committed 40 Surim in HaTorah. Kiyasar Rav and Amar, he said, Mishum Nazgas, a little bit of a different list. Rashi explains. So Rashi hears about 10-12 lines from the top. Najga, says Rashi, they considered it as though he did all kinds of Isurim in HaTorah. That's how they treated it. They treated it severely. They threw the book at him. Nashga means Gazra Aleim Mishum Nida D'Rabbanan. So although a guy doesn't have tumah, like we said before, a guy's like a behemoth, there's no technical, it's not technically not tummy. But she was labeled as though she's a nida. V'afagav says Rashi, even if a Gaisha woman sees dam, it doesn't make her tummy. Sharari kibehema, she has the status of a behemoth. Cham Gazra Lacham, consider her like a nida. So interacting with a Gaisha woman is as though he interacted with a nida. Umshum shivcha, as though she was a maidservant, which is another isra. Mishum Avedas Kachavim. So that's the nun is nida, shin is the shivcha, gimel is the goita, like Avedas Kachavim, as though he married a guy. Kilu mischatem derech ishus, and the aleph is the ishus ish, as though he interacted with a Jewish married woman. That's how severely they treated this experience. Umshem ish. Rashi explains, the bulas bal yeshlan livnei noyach, the chsiv bulas bal, because there is a concept of a married woman even by a guy. V'hi bulas bal, right? She's married to her husband. V'Yisrael haragel b'kach, and the concern is that if a Yisrael is accustomed to this type of interaction with a Gaisha woman, it can lead hoyel ba'ala b'nidasa, since he interacts with her even when she's a nida, because by a Gaita there's no status of nida, but it can lead to doing the same with a Jewish woman who's a nida, in which case it's very severe, it's kares. Furthermore, it can lead him to marry a real shivcha, which triggers a new set of concerns. That's a special law for a shivcha. And he might actually marry this woman, this Gaisha woman. And then he's being over a new Israel. And he can come to interaction with a married woman, a Jewish married woman. If he does this with a guy, he might. So for the above mentioned concerns, we treat this experience as though she's a nida, a shivcha, a gaita, and eshes ish. According to Rabin, he switches out eshes ish. He says it's not going to lead one to confuse her with a married woman, a Jewish married woman. Rather, mishum nashgaz. He says the aleph leaves and the zayin comes in. She's like a zoina, like a woman who's has a status of a Zayna. So if he's a Kohen, he cannot marry a Zayna. And the Bezdin Chashmonai considered every year as though she was a Zayna. So the 4 items are Nida, Shifcha, Avedis Chacham, Zayna. Shem Kohen, who if he's a Kohen, Yesh Kam Shem Lav the Zayna, we treat it as though he violated the lav of a Zayna. V'loi lav mamash. Now Rashi, of course, clarifies that we're not actually accusing him of violating a lav d'oraisa, because after all, she's not a Zayna, she's just a plain Goyisha woman. Concern is that if you do this, he might do the same with a Jewish Zayna, which means to say a Jewish woman who interacted with somebody that she shouldn't have, she makes her a Zayna. And if he's a Kohen, he can't have anything to do with her. So clearly, this type of experience was banned from those times already. And says the Gemara, Ki Gazru, the first wide line, Ki Gazru, Beis Din Shachashminoi, true. Although the Bezdin Chashmonai did make Gzeira, that's only physical interaction only. Bia Aval Yichud Loi. But regarding Bimas Yachid, which means to say spending time in private, in seclusion, that was not Asr at the time. Aval Yichud Loi. Until later days, V'asu Inu, the Talmidim of Hillel V'Shami came along, and they broadened the Isser Gazra Afilu Yichud, even Yichud is Asr. Well, that too predates Hillel V'Shama. Yichud Nami, Beis Din Shel David Gazra, from the time of David HaMelech. It was already Asr. The Amar Vida, Bois Shah at that time, during that unfortunate episode, that interaction between Amnon and Tamar. So they saw how detrimental the Yichud, leaving people alone, can lead to terrible things. Gazral Yichud, they established Yichud, the Isra of Yichud. So again, it's old news. Answers the Gemara Amri, the answer was like this: Hasam Yichud Bas Yisrael. That was limited to be Mesachet with a Jewish woman. Avol Yichud Evetz Kechavim. Lie, but by a guy it's not, because typically it's not so prevalent, not so common to have a Goyish woman around. So they didn't see a need to include that in the Isra. V'asu inu gazru afilu ayichud evetz kechavim. Came the later generation, Talmid Hillel V'Shamai, and made Isra Yichud even on that. Asked the Gemara, so you telling me David HaMelech's Bezdin was needed to make the Yichud on Bas Yisrael? Well, that's already Minat Torah. One may not be Misyachid with a woman, Minat Torah. Yichud Bas Yisrael D'oraisa. Damar Yechanan Mishum Shimoni Yitzada. Remez. Where do we find the source? Yichud Minat Torah. Minayin. Show me a pasuk. Show me a source for the Isra of Yichud. Shanamar, the pasuk says, Ki yisischa achicha. So your brother will lead you astray, convince you to do Avodah Zarah. Interestingly, the pasuk relates to him as Ben Imecha. Your brother is son of your mother. Now, why is that relevant? A brother with whom you share a mother. So let it be a brother with whom you share a father. Why is that relevant to the case? V'chi ben Eim Mesis. You think only a brother who's the son of your mother can lead you astray? Ben Av Eim Mesis, not if he's the son of your father. I mean, why is that? Ella, rather, the pasuk here is hinting, embedded in the pasuk. We have it's alluding to totally new halach, Isur Yichud. Ella, rather, Ben Misachim. Meanwhile, the fact that the pasuk mentions son and mother together to teach us that, a son and a mother is no problem of Yichud. Likewise, a father and a daughter, a granddaughter, right? But otherwise, one may not go into seclusion with any other relative. One may not be Misyachet, go into seclusion with any other woman who's forbidden to him. So it's a pasuk that Yichud with the Bas Yisrael is Asr. Why was it necessary for David HaMelech to make a new Isra? Answers the Gemara, you're right. There are different levels of Yichud. Yichud d'oraisa, the Yichud that we find in the pasuk Deishas Ish, that's with respect to a married woman or close relative. V'asa David v'Gaza afilu Yichud d'pnuya. Came David HaMelech due to that unfortunate episode and said, look, even going into Yichud with a unmarried non-relative is a problem. But v'asu Talmidei came the later generations and they said, look, not only Yichud with a Jewish woman, Gazar, they established an Israel, Afilu Yichud with a Goita, Davez Kechavim. So that sums up the whole chronological sequence of events regarding interacting with a Goita in all different ways. Or Yichud with all its different manifestations. Now, one more thing that they banned was davar acher, something else, on account of another concern. What exactly was that? My davar al davar acher shel davar acher. Amar Rachman Yitzchak gazru. They made an isur al tinaik av kichavim. Shitame beziva. So just like we spoke about a goyisha baby girl is considered tamei, likewise a tinik, a young goyisha boy, is considered tamei as though he's a zav. He experienced that ziva experience, even though he hadn't. They consider him as such in order to keep away from him. Shalei tinik Yisrael ragel eslav mishkav zachor, for concern that a Jewish boy shouldn't be hanging around with him and might be led by the guy to inappropriate physical interaction with him. Dam Reb Zera, as Reb Zera tells us, Tsar Gadol Hayli. I tried many times. I asked over and over again. It took great effort. Eitzor Reb Asi, with respect to Reb Asi, I asked him over and over, and he didn't have a ready answer. What is the minimum age to consider the Goysha boy as a Zav? So he went further up the chain of command. Rav Asi, it's Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan asked, it's Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai asked, it's Rabbi Nachman ben Amram. From Nachman ben Amram, it's Rabbi. What's the minimum age? Tineg ovid gechavim. So this Goysha boy may masay mitame beziva. Okay, he's treated like a zav. At what age? V'amar li ben Yaima, he says, as soon as he's born, there's no limit. Right off the bat, he's tamei. But continues Reb Zera, and he says, actually, it's Reb Chia. When I came to Reb Chia and I asked him the same question, he says, no. He needs to be at least 9 years old. For then he is deemed to have the ability to engage in this type of activity. Right? So halachically speaking, at that point, he's considered able. So only from that point forward does he have this status. Amrli ben Teshanim Yom Echad, 9 years and a day, basically past 9 years old. Dvarim Lifnei Rebbe, says Reb Zera. Furthermore, when I went back and I presented Reb Chia's 9-year-old formula back to Rebbe, who was the one who said 1 day old, he agreed. Amrli says, you know what? You have a point. Hanach Dvarai ve'achois Divi Reb Chia, adopt Reb Chia's opinion over mine. Damar, who says, at what point does it get tummy? Ben Teshanim Echad, only at the 9-year-old mark. And the reason is, since halachically is considered Roy Labia, able to interact this way, he gets that status of Ziva. Amar Ravina says, okay, so by extension, let's shift over to the young Goysha daughter. Her status of Tumah doesn't initiate when she's born, only when she turns 3 years old, in which case she's halachically deemed able to interact. Amar Ravina Hilchach, therefore, Hati Noikis Avetz Kacham, this Goysha Jewish girl, Bas Gimel Shanim Echad, only once she hits 3 years old, Hoyel V'Ru'ui Labia, she says Roi for Bia, Metaman Ama Beziva, she gets the Tumah in order to keep us away. So unlike the other opinion, right, that it was Mary Susan, at birth, no. It only starts at the 3-year mark. So by a boy it's 9 years, by the daughter it's 3 years. Pshita, well, obviously, if it's a correlating issa, then it's a corresponding issa, then it correlates to the same numbers. Perhaps I would think it's different. Perhaps by a daughter, a Goysha daughter, it doesn't start so early because a boy, once he hits 9 years old, he might entice the Jewish boy to accompany him. But a Goysha daughter, merely at 3 years old, she's not able to do that. So perhaps she does not pose a concern at that early stage in her life. The answer is no. No. We establish an Isser all across the board, which starts when they are deemed able to interact, each one in his respective time period, 9 years old for the boy, and 3 for the Goysha daughter. Okay, let's do a quick recap. Shemen of the Goyim was considered Asur, whether it's because of chasnas per se, or combined with the kashrus concern of the kalim which are asr. It was initiated either by Daniel in a limited form or by Talmud-bavli Vashamai, who according to Rab broadened the scope, and according to Shmuel they were the ones who initiated it, which was eventually rescinded by Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi and his Bezdin upon seeing that it wasn't really being implemented. So in fact, the sequence of the Xeris, the rationale, let's say, behind the Xeris, established by Talmud-bavli Vashamai, was Pitam Rishamna, because of Yenam, which can lead to Bnei Seyan, which can lead to Davar Achar. The Gemara concluded Bnei Seyan here means even Isser Yichud with an Avedas Kechavim, which is Yichud ben Darabanan, as opposed to with a Bas Yisrael, Erva, which is Isser De'oraisa, which is the Yichud De'oraisa. And we spoke about the Tumah applied to the Tinoik and Tinoikis of the Oivdei Kechavim. All the best to you, and Hatzlach Rav.